And before we get started with this new episode, I just want to remind everybody that if you want to check out all things From the Shadows podcast, go to our website, fromtheshadowspodcast.com. There's links to all of our social media. You can check out our Instagram, our Facebook, become members, hang out, share stories, whatever you want to do, even good recipes. I'm always in the, look out for a good recipe or two here as we go into to Christmas, around Thanksgiving, Christmas. So I'm not really cooking. I'm giving them to my wife. Anyway, so with that being said, the real important button on there is the contact button. You can hit the contact button, send me an email, tell me about an experience you had or a sighting, and if you want to come on the show, we'll have you on the show, because that's our favorite thing here is real eyewitness testimony. So if you want to get a hold of me directly, you can find me at Shane Grove Author on Instagram or any of the Facebook pages. You can send me a message and I will get back to you. So with that being said, I want to introduce Adam from Arkansas, even
Yes,
though
sir.
this story doesn't take place in Arkansas, but Adam from Arkansas has probably one of the most chilling stories I've heard in a while. And I've heard some good stories here lately. And I'm not even going to get in the way of it. I just want you to tell our listeners, who are actually our
Yeah.
guests. They're our guests, but tell our
Yeah.
listeners the same story that you told me last night, because this is crazy.
Yeah. So, this happened about August, September of 2023. So it was me, my wife, and our son. He was 13 at the time. We were living in Northeast Oklahoma, one of the most northeastern cities you can get to before you hit Missouri and Joplin area. And I remember that the school year had just started because it was about 2 weeks into the school year. And over the summer, I had taught my son how to make a crawdad trap, where you cut the top of a 2-liter bottle off and then flip it over, tape it around, and then we tied it to some fishing line. And there's a metal grate bridge through the tree line in the back of the apartment complex that we lived at. So I taught him how to do that, and we had caught some crawdads over the summer for fishing, and we had our couple little secret fishing spots that we would go to. And so it was about 9:30, 10 o'clock one night, and we were brushing teeth, getting ready for bed. And he was like, "Hey, Dad, can we go check the crawdad trap before I have to go to sleep?" And I said, "Sure." So the way our apartment is set up is we lived on one of the outer edge apartments, and they were like outdoor apartments. So the balconies and everything were outdoors, and our railing faced the tree line towards the woods. And there's a small parking lot. And then there's about 20 or 30 yards of open grass where people would walk their dogs, let them use the restroom and whatnot. And then there was a trail that led through the woods. And it wasn't too big, but it was probably about a half mile from one side to the other. On the other side, it opened up into a suburban neighborhood, excuse me. Um, and about halfway through, there was a metal grate bridge that went over a creek, and that's where we decided to tie up this little trap. So he took his flashlight, and me, my wife, and our son walked out to the trail and walked through the trail and found the bridge, found our trap, pulled it up, and there was about 3 or 4 dead crawdads in there, which we used for fishing. So he was super excited about that. And then about that time, my wife got close to me and she nudged me with her elbow. And she said, "I just got the EBGBs." And right when she said that, the hair on my arm stood up, the hair on the back of my neck stood up. I got goosebumps, and just a feeling of dread washed over me, like completely. And for no reason. We didn't hear anything at the time. We didn't see anything. It was just a feeling of dread and fear, and like someone was watching us. And like I quickly looked around, didn't see anything, didn't hear anything. But I didn't want to freak my family out or anything. So I was like, "Hey guys, like we just need to go home." So I was like, "Son, you walk first." And, my wife, I had her go second, and then I followed behind, and we were all walking home. And the whole walk through the trail took less than 10 minutes. It was maybe a 3-minute walk, back to the trailhead. And the whole time we were walking back, I was listening for twigs breaking, leaves crunching, footsteps, anything. I was listening up in the trees. I was trying to listen on the trail behind us. I didn't hear anything. Like, it was dead quiet. I didn't hear anything following us. Like, I didn't even hear insects or crickets or frogs or cicadas or anything. It was just dead quiet. So we got back to the trailhead, and that was like a sense of relief for me, but I still felt something in the woods. So we crossed over the grass area through the parking lot, and the way our apartment's set up, when you walk up the stairs, at the top of the stairs is a railing, like a balcony, and that railing is facing the tree line. But once you get to the top, you have to make a little U-turn, and our apartment door is right there. So me and my wife made that little U-turn, and we were unlocking the door. And if it wasn't for our son, we would have never seen this Dogman, because me and my wife were about to go back into the apartment. And our son, he's a very well-mannered kid. He's very respectful, doesn't cuss. We go to church, and he actually just got back from a church camp over the weekend. This is where it gets I get like short of breath telling this part. But we get to the apartment door, and then our son starts screaming. He starts screaming, "What is that? What the F is that?" I've never, he's said the F word maybe like twice,
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "What the hell is that?" And we turn around, and he has his flashlight right at the beginning of the trailhead where the wood line meets the grassy area, sitting on all fours. Like, if you tell a dog to sit, is like the biggest dog I've ever seen in my life. Like, okay, so it was sitting on all fours. It was jet black. And what's weird about it is that its coat was clean. Like, it didn't look dirty. I didn't see any like mud on it or anything. It had like a clean coat, jet black, solid black, no white or any other color mixed in at all, sitting on all fours. And I'm 6'1". And when it was sitting on all fours, this thing had to come up to at least my shoulders. It might have been as tall as me sitting on all fours. But what was weird was my son had its flashlight beam like right on its chest, but it had its head sticking straight up in the air, and it was sniffing to the left and the right of where this beam was, like it was trying to get our scent or something. And so it was sitting there, and I watched it, and the shoulders, I'm going to try to describe this the best I can. It had very, very broad shoulders, and its front arms looked nothing like a dog. It looked like regular arms, and then I was trying to look at its hands, because I know people have described it as like raccoon hands or something, but the grass had grown up enough to where its hands were in the grass. So I wasn't able to look at its hands or anything, but it had very broad shoulders. I remember that. And it was had more hair around its neck and shoulders. It didn't have as much hair on like the chest and stomach. And I remember that its bottom jaw, when I was looking up and sniffing, I could see its jawline like through its skin. But the whole time it just kept its head up, so I never got to see its eyes or anything. It was just looking to the left and to the right and just sniffing the air like real quick. It was weird. But what got me was our son didn't stop screaming. Like, "What is that? What the hell is that? What is that?" And my wife, she's always made fun of me for believing in Dogman. And I was always on the fence about it until this encounter. But she was like, "Are we really seeing this? What are we seeing? Is this real?" She's like, "What do we do? What do we do?" And I'm a Marine Corps veteran, like in the infantry. And this is the first time I've ever been frozen in fear. The feeling of fear and dread that I had at that moment is the first time I've ever been paralyzed by fear. Just the fear emanating, and just the evil that was coming off of this thing was, I can't even put into words. And so I had no idea what to do. Like, I'm still at a loss for words trying to convey what I was feeling at the moment. And so we sat there. It felt like 10, 15 minutes, but it couldn't have been more than 20 or 30 seconds, but we all got a good look at this thing. And that's all I remember. I remember seeing the jet black fur and it sniffing. I could see its chest moving back and forth and its nostrils, moving because it was sniffing really quick. And after about 20 or 30 seconds and not knowing what to do, this thing stood up on two legs. Like if a person was squatting down with just his knees, and a person can effortlessly just like stand up, that's what this thing did. I didn't hear any bones crunching or anything like that. There was no sound when it stood up, but it was like effortless. And it just stood up. And as it stood up, it just brought its hands to its side. And that's what was weird about it. Its arms were way too long for its body. It was disproportionate. But as soon as it stood up, it took about a step and a half, 2 steps before we all just turned and ran back inside. And we went back inside, locked the door. Um, my wife wanted all of us to sleep together in the living room as a family. Sorry, it's still gets to me.
I'm
um,
sure. I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does.
but I was like, no. I was like, babe, you and our son. I was like, go sleep in the back bedroom, and I slept on the love seat that's right next to the front door. And I kept my pistol underneath my pillow, locked it, locked all the windows, locked everything. Luckily, we didn't have anything else happen that night, and I haven't seen one since or had anything happen to me since. But what was weird was that tree line that it was walking down.
Mm-hmm.
It only goes down for like maybe another quarter mile, and then the parking lot ends, and then it butts up against the back of a strip mall. And there's like a Dollar General, Dollar Tree. There's like a Mexican restaurant in the parking lot, a Rent-A-Center. It butts up to the back of one of those. So I don't know where it was going. Like there's nowhere for it to go back there.
Well, I do get reports of, in which is it's kind of odd, okay? Because when we think of Dogman, we think of a lot of people get this eerie, like you said, demonic type feeling, so that it's almost not like just this regular animal out there. It's something extra, okay? But then you hear that these things, they find them by like trash dumpsters, like digging in the trash,
Or eating roadkill or something.
or eating roadkill, which you would think is like, and I don't know, this is kind of dumb, but you think it's like beneath
Yeah.
something that gives off this aura of power and evilness. You think it would, somebody be serving at dinner on a silver platter. It wouldn't be. It would be. So it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't surprise me. Like, who knows what it? Maybe it was going down there to, get whatever was left over from the Mexican restaurant. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah, it could have been because those dumpsters were right down there too.
yeah.
And
So did you? So when it's now, I know you took all. It didn't. You didn't wait very long, but did you hear it making any noise as it was walking away, or not?
No, I didn't hear it. Like I've heard people tell stories about when it stands up, they hear like bones cracking or popping or whatever. I didn't hear any noise.
That's just me. That's just me getting, like when you were saying, a human can get up effortlessly, and there's no. I'm like, I couldn't get up effortlessly. Like my bones are cracking right now just thinking about
Right, yeah.
it.
When it started walking, it took like 2 steps before he ran back inside, but I didn't hear anything when it stood up or started walking away.
So what made your son think to look back? Like, did you ever ask him about that, or did he ever say what got his
No,
attention to look back and look and check
no,
out?
I've never asked him that, but he's a curious kid, So, and he had the flashlight. My guess is he was just doing like one last little scan of the woods before we went back inside when he found it. But the thing is, our son, he denied it for like the first year and a half. Like me and my wife would be talking about it, and then he would be like, "Oh, that never happened. It was this, it was that,"
Mm.
and which I understood it, which is why I never pressed the issue with him, you
Mm-hmm.
know. because me and my wife know exactly what it was and what we saw. It wasn't until recently, within the last like 6 months, to where he'd be like, I know what we saw. He's like, I know it was Dogman. But then the next day, he'll come in or he'll hop in the car with me, and I'll have a Dogman podcast playing, and I'll shut it off, and play something else when he's in the car. But that first little bit will play, and he'd be like, "Oh, so those guys saw a bear," and so like he still jokes about it, So
Yeah.
he's because he was 13 when that happened, and he's 15 now. So, but he's slowly coming to grips with it. But I mean, to be that age and to see that and to go through that, like I
Hmm.
understand where it's coming from. He's trying to, come to terms with what happened.
Yeah, it's a lot of trauma for. I mean, and you see that in kids a lot. Whether no matter what the trauma is, they will suppress it because the a lot of times facing the truth. Whether it's some kind of abuse or some kind of you know other societal issue that they're facing, that if they have to come to grips with it, it's going to be pretty tough. And then your peer group, I mean, those dudes at school don't want to hear that he saw some dog man. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? They're going to give him
yeah,
crap. They're going to give him crap. I mean, we went through the same thing with the judge on our show. Had an
mhm,
experience when we were teenagers too, not much older than what your son is now, and he didn't tell us. And because of that very reason, so he suppressed that that part too, which it's I guess everybody has a different way of dealing with that sort of
yeah.
thing, and which really,
And
so it really, you being in the Marine Corps in an infantry, or right, an infantry,
yeah, yeah.
so you're trained. I mean, you're trained to be alert, be aware,
Oh yeah,
know
and
it's
observation, and like we did special training on observation is like collect every detail you can, write everything down, memorize it, and so I was trained like that for a long time. Attention to detail, situational awareness, the whole 9 yards. And look, when I was looking at that thing, like the last thing on my mind was to pull out my phone and take a picture,
mm-hmm.
or something. But I was just trying to grab every little detail I could looking at it. But at the same time, I was trying to come up with an answer for my wife and son. Like, what do we do? What is it? Like, what do I tell them? And first time in my life, I've been frozen. I've done 2 deployments, and I've always had an answer for what to do. And hairy situations, when things pop off, I always knew exactly what to do. And this was the first time in my life I was frozen and had no idea,
Wow.
because
Well, let me ask you this. So, if you guys had not seen it stand up and walk off, what kind of, I mean, you could have probably rationalized that, my God, that was the biggest dog I ever saw, or that was a giant wolf.
possibly, possibly, if it wasn't for the amount of evil I felt coming off of this thing, it was like it was like an aura that it had of just pure evil. And I've seen bears, I've seen coyotes. Coyotes attacked my dog when we used to walk by the river. I used to have to walk out for coyotes and take a little 22 with me. And I've seen wildlife. I know what wildlife is, but this thing was just emanating fear. It had an aura that just like it hit you like an arrow and just like paralyzed you.
Hmm.
That's why I know it wasn't natural, you know.
Wow.
And but yeah, me and my wife went out the next day to where it was sitting on all fours right at the trailhead, and because there was a light post right there slash telephone pole, and we went right up to where we saw the top of its head, and it came up to about my shoulder, a little bit like in between the shoulder and my nose, is what we're guessing. But when it stood up on 2 legs, it was at least 8 foot tall. And it was a lot skinnier than I thought it was going to be too. Real broad in the shoulders, but its waist was skinnier than I thought it was going to be.
So, just as a frame of reference, okay, you said I was, before we got on here, um, I was watching the Thunder and the Rockets first game of the NBA season tonight. The Rockets started the largest starting five in NBA history, and they averaged 6'10". So think about that. Okay.
Yeah.
think about, those are ginormous guys. Okay.
Yeah,
The guy that plays center for the Rockets is a guy from Turkey. He's one of the biggest. He's 6'10" and 290, 310 pounds. He's a big guy.
yeah,
It's so when you start talking about those sizes, you're talking about bigger than the guys starting for the Houston Rockets tonight.
yeah. A foot,
That's
foot and a half, 2 foot taller than Shaq.
that's
You know,
insane.
when
That's
when
insane.
when I was a kid, I grew up in Sacramento, and I went to an autograph signing with Peja Stojakovic and
Oh
Vlade
yeah.
Divac.
Oh
You
yeah.
know,
Yeah yeah.
and I remember seeing how tall those guys were.
Hmm.
When I was about my son's age at the time, and this thing was taller than that. And when you see one, it's at that point it becomes not just the fear that it's emanating, it's seeing its size. Because it dwarfs you. You feel helpless. Like, and this is something that me and my wife talked about afterwards. That really, it didn't scare me until after we thought about it. Um, that when we felt it in the woods, it could have gotten us at any point. There was nothing stopping it from doing whatever it wanted. I wasn't carrying at the time. Like, I think I might have had a pocket knife on me, which is like an ant having a toothpick, or something, and
Yeah.
when we felt it in the woods, it was following us. It could have pounced on us. It could have done whatever it wanted to, but for some reason it let us just walk all the way out and then just stopped at the trailhead. And like I said, if it wasn't for our son, me and Ashley were about to walk right inside the house.
And then and that now it's kind of a double-edged sword, because you're not gonna, if that decided to attack you guys, it would have taken all three of you guys and probably with no problem. There'd
Easily.
be there'd be no, and the last thing anybody's going to think, oh, they were attacked and eaten and drug off by a dog man. Okay, so there wouldn't be any evidence of, or anybody that would claim that that's what happened, because every person obviously that we talk to lives to tell the story. And
Yeah.
I've never talked to anybody personally that, and I've talked to people that have taken shots at them and think they've hit them, but I've never talked to anybody who really felt like they were in imminent danger from it actually attacking them.
Yeah.
And they always say that there's instances in the encounter where, yeah, this thing could have taken them, and that'd have been that. And so you wonder, that makes it, so to me, that hammers home the idea that it is a lot more paranormal than it is just a physical thing. Like, it's a paranormal thing that we experience
Yeah.
physically, is what I
That's
is what I think.
Yeah, just from the feeling, just remembering what I felt that night, it definitely felt demonic. I'm a God-fearing man, and if I've ever been around a demon before, that was it. Like, it felt completely demonic. But like you were saying, I never felt like it was going to attack us. I just felt its presence, you know,
Hmm.
and it felt like we were being watched. Like, I didn't feel like something was about to pounce on me at any point. It was just being around that evil is what I felt.
And I wonder, because people in Dogman encounters seem to experience an immensely more uh, range of fear, way more fear in a Dogman encounter than they do in a Bigfoot encounter. And so you wonder if this creature um, feeds off of that. That's what it's really feeding off of, is the energy that you're putting off and the fear that you're experiencing. I don't know. I
I
mean,
can
who knows?
I
We
can
don't
agree
know.
with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, none of us have the answers. I've
No.
heard theories I agree with. I've heard some that I don't, really agree with. But as far as it feeding off of our energy, I can totally 100% see that.
Hmm.
Because I've heard about, a dog man scaring somebody and them having an encounter, and then it smirks at it, and then takes off. It's like, I got you. And then, and I could totally, after my encounter, I could totally see that happening, you know?
And at the same time, I did heard numerous encounters of, or numerous encounter stories where dogs have fought with these creatures. The creatures themselves have fought with Bigfoot. There's people that have told those stories. So there does seem to be a certain segment of these that are more animal than they are what you experience. See, I think people are experiencing two different things. I think people are experiencing a spiritual, supernatural thing, like maybe you guys and what the judge did. And then, like, if you're out, there's stories about guys out coon hunting where the coon dogs go after these things,
Yeah.
and and so that has to be a physical thing, a physical thing out there, like it's an animal. So I
Yeah.
don't, but I don't know.
Yeah. I
I don't
mean,
know. I have no idea. And I'm not
I
going to
have
go,
no
I'm not
idea.
going out there to test any theory. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like maybe, I don't know. I'm just throwing this out there. Maybe it could be a demon manifesting itself in
Mhm.
some way. And then when it manifests in a physical form, it has certain limitations that render it to more animalistic,
Hmm.
things that it has to do. I don't know. Like I've thought about that before too. Maybe it has to like lessen itself somehow and become, in order to materialize, has to become more animalistic
That's
in a way.
That's a very interesting take on it. And the the worst part of it is the trauma your son's going through, and then your wife was on talking to me a little bit before, and like you guys didn't ask for this. It wasn't like you were
No.
out looking for Bigfoot or Dogman. You're just out doing like something for your kid, you know, um, and just a stroll through the probably that you had done dozens, if not 100 times,
All the
and
time.
you didn't. And she was still shook up from it, and
Mhm.
you're shook up. Like you got shook up last night telling me the story, and you're shook up now telling me, and I can't imagine it. So, um, yeah, I'm glad that you feel comfortable enough to come on and share it because that's a frightening story, especially with your wife and son. It's one thing for you to do it and
Yeah.
experience it. It's another thing to know, like, man, my wife and son are here, and how am I going to protect them?
Yeah. It took me, a couple years just to, start calling a podcast or two. Um, just to process it all and just to get my thoughts in order about what it was and then, what danger we were in and, what I'm going to do better, what I could have done better next. I'm still blaming myself for putting my family in that situation in a certain way, you know, even though
How do you expect that though in a little patch of woods in a
I know
by an
it's just
apartment
looking back,
complex? Yeah.
it's like I should have had my pistol on me. I should have, so like I feel, I don't know. That's just me beating myself up over it. I still feel a little bit of guilt, for not having the answers. And I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain, but now I don't go into the woods, unarmed anymore. Learn my
No.
lesson.
Well, don't feel bad. Nobody really has the answers, and
Yeah.
there's people that are out here doing lots of research, and it I think the Dogman stuff is way different than Bigfoot. I think you can go find a habitat where Bigfoot is and where you could have a chance to see it again or whatever. I don't think that's the case with Dogman. I don't think Dogman's hanging out in the same places all the time, and you know, and and I think if I just don't think people are gonna. People keeps leaving comments. Oh, when are we going to get a great video or a great picture of this? I don't think we are unless it's off a trail cam or a security footage because anybody I've heard is worried about living rather than worried about taking a picture.
Yeah. Like I said, that was the last thing on my mind, was taking out my phone and like the feelings you get, you're in such a state of shock, a state of fear. You're feeling things off this animal. You're worried about the people that you're with, your loved ones around you. There's so many other things going through your mind. Like the last thing you're thinking of is pulling out a cell phone.
And I'm going to be honest, if you're taking a picture from 40 yards away, 30, 40 yards away, and
Yeah.
it's dark,
And this
nobody's
thing was jet black.
yeah,
And
nobody's gonna believe it. You're not gonna be able to see what you're seeing,
Mhm.
and then people are going to say, "Oh, it's AI," or it's somebody in a suit, and you just so it just I hate that people just you know
Yeah.
have to nitpick and say, "Well, where's the video?"
Yeah.
Where's the video?
Hey,
Now you had a
wait. Hey, can
oh
I pause you for a second?
yeah
Can we take like a 30-second break real quick?
yeah.
And then, okay. Give
Yeah.
me like,
Okay, so your wife, so after this incident, you and your wife were talking, and she actually had an experience when she was younger in Michigan, right? That kind of made you guys reevaluate, so,
yeah.
what it
Yeah.
might have been.
So after we had this experience, my wife totally believed me because before that, I was driving trucks and I would listen to podcasts all the time, cryptid podcasts and Bigfoot and whatnot. And my wife always made fun of me because I told her about the Dogman, and I was like, she's from Michigan, so I'm like, have you ever heard of the Michigan Dogman? And she's never heard of it in her life.
Hmm.
So after this, we were going on a road trip and we were just talking about it. And she's like, you know what? This kind of reminds me um, of when I was walking home from a buddy's house one time. It was like a mile down a gravel road, and then her driveway was like a quarter mile down. And so she was leaving her buddy's house. He's like, I can give you a ride if you want. She's like, no, it's fine. It's not that far. And she was walking down this gravel road and she heard something in the trees, like pouncing. It would go from one tree, pounce across the road into another tree, and then pounce back and like pounce in front of her and pounce back. And she just kept hearing something jump from tree to tree. And she said she had like that same feeling of fear, and she thought it was like a bobcat or a mountain lion or something like that. And when me and her were talking, I was like, babe, bobcats and mountain lions, like, don't do that. That's not how they hunt. That's not their,
And I called my mom.
and so she kept walking and she's made that walk from her friend's house millions of times, you know, dozens probably. But she got so scared that she just made it down to the end of her driveway and she called her mom and she's like, Mom, there's a mountain lion, like stalking me. Can you come pick me up? So she had her mom drive like the quarter mile down the driveway to go pick her up at the end of the driveway because she was too scared to even make the full walk home. And after the experience that we had, I told her, I was like, mountain lions don't do that and stuff. She was like, I wonder if that was a dog man, when like, and thinking about it, she didn't see anything, but she heard it and it was big. And I was like, that was probably a dog man because she said she got the same EBGBs back then that she did when we had our encounter.
Ask him if he wants to talk to me.
Yeah,
So
it was either Dogman or maybe a Bigfoot, because Bigfoot are known to be up in the trees.
It seems scary.
Yeah, they seem to be up in the trees too sometimes.
it could have been, yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, she had that experience, and I all I know, well, I don't know, but I really don't think it was a mountain lion or bobcat or lynx or anything like that because they're not going to hunt like that or stalk prey like that, you know. So I
Yeah,
think,
they'd already done pounced and ate her.
yeah, yeah, and she had walked like a mile down the road already, you know. But yeah, then my son had a couple of experiences over this last summer that are possibly connected to our encounter. Um, Over the summer, he went to go stay with my wife's sister, and she lives in Kentucky, and she has a bunch of property, has a couple horses, has a huge pasture, has a garden at home, a couple ATVs. Her husband has like some project cars and stuff. So she wanted to visit with her nephew. So we're like, yeah, you can go out there for like a month. And she said that was fine. So we drove him out to Kentucky. And about 2 weeks after he had stayed there, we got a call from my wife's sister. And at the back of the pasture is like this huge slope. Um, it goes down for a good ways. And she called and said one of the horses got like rolled down this slope. And I wasn't talking to her sister at the time, but from what I gathered, this horse was like tumbling down this slope. And the horses never go back there. Like they're smart creatures. They know not to go back there. Something like that can happen. So, and they're big, heavy, 900,000, 1,100 pound creatures. And so something happened. And at first, when she first told us that, Dogman wasn't even in my head. I was like, oh, horse slips, mishap, something. But what got me was about a week after that, she called back and said that one of her horses had gotten attacked, and it had like 4 gashes down the side of its face, like down its neck. And luckily, the horse made a full recovery.
She thought it was a coyote.
And so, but the horse, when it first got attacked, she called and said that it got attacked by a coyote. But then we saw it and we're like, that's not a coyote. Coyotes don't do that. And then she told us in private, she was like, I know for a fact it wasn't a coyote. And so then we told her about our encounter with the Dogman, and she believes us, and she believes that it could be related. But what gets me is that our son was the first one to see it in Oklahoma. And so, and it was sniffing in the air and everything. And so I was wondering, like, if it got his scent, like, because I've heard that they might migrate or something. So I'm not sure if it got his scent and then, followed him all the way to Kentucky, or if it might be a different one. Because this is just this past summer. This was like July.
So it was like 2 years after that last site.
Yeah.
And you wonder though if it's like a supernatural type thing, if it is like its essence or whatever followed.
Yeah.
I look. There's so many ways you can skin this cat, so to speak.
Yeah.
As far as like what's possible, because it seems like anything's possible.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like when it comes to horses, I mean, there's no way a coyote is even like our pleasure horse. Like it's not a great big horse, but it's still a big horse. And coyotes around here are like 60 pounds. If a coyote at 60 pounds tried to mess with this horse would stomp a mud hole.
That was my thought too. Yeah. He'd trample them, and the gashes, it was going down like behind its eye and then like down to its neck, and like 4 gashes. And I'm like, coyotes get 40, 50, 60 pounds on like the heavy end. I was like, there's no way, even if you think it was a coyote, that coyote would have had to jump up all the way to its head, drag it. Its paw isn't even big enough to make gashes like that.
And the theory is, and we've talked about this before, is like coyotes are pack animals, and they hunt in packs a lot of the time, and they all like attack something together because they don't want to get injured and not be able to run with the pack is the saying. And so I don't think for one second. Now, would a bear do that to a horse? Maybe, but I don't.
This was north central Kentucky. Like how many bears? It's like I'm sure they're out there, but
normally animals, especially predators, don't go after things bigger than them.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Is they attack something they know they can take down and handle, and I don't know. And look, we've gotten so many stories from the Appalachian mountains and the Daniel Boone National Forest and everything in Kentucky. Like, there's seems to be dogmen out there. You know what I'm saying?
And it's weird that these 2 incidents occurred within like a week or 2 of each other. The horse getting rolled down the hill, and then I think it was a week and a half, 2 weeks later, the horse, they go out in the morning and the horse has gashes down its side, and there's 2 horses in that barn that roam the pasture too. So it's not like they're alone,
Oh yeah. They're and that's why you never have a singular horse. They don't, first of all, they don't like being alone. They're social kind of creatures. And so if you've got 2 out there, they're going to take care of each other, and I don't know. I have no idea.
It's weird, but like I said, now we're in north central Arkansas, so we don't live in Oklahoma anymore. And since we've been living here, we haven't had anything happen, and I really hope it stays that way. When before I had my encounter, Sasquatch I believed in. I still do. Never seen one. Never had anything happen to me before this. And I heard about Dogman, and I was always on the fence about it because I was like, there's no way something like that could exist. But then I would listen to story after story after story and the similarities. And I was like, everybody can't be making something up, with so many similarities. It's like, I really hope I don't ever. And I kind of wanted to see one back then. And I really hope I never, ever see one again. Like, it is the most frightening experience of my life. Anybody that says that they want to see one, I used to think the same thing, but it'll change you. It really, really will. And
I have
for the better.
I have no doubt. I mean, I've talked to too many people that it has changed. You know what I'm saying? Like it really affects them. It's a it is a life-changing experience, to say the least, and not in a good way.
No,
because then you're faced with the reality that monsters exist.
Yeah, and they're real, and it's kind of ruined camping for me. I'm a lot more nervous and jittery in the woods. Like growing up, we used to go out to like the Sierra Nevadas and Lake Tahoe and stuff, and not go to just regular campsites or campgrounds. We'd go hiking in the woods by ourselves, and just pitch a tent out in the middle of nowhere. There's no way in hell I do that now. It no. If we go camping, it's going to be like at a state park right off the highway. I'm not hiking in the woods to go camp out in the middle of nowhere anymore. It's maybe I'll get over it one day. I don't know. Not anytime soon, but I'm not.
If you start to get over it, you got my number. Just give me a call. I'll remind you that to not get over it. That's the one. That's the one thing to not get over.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I appreciate you sending me an email. I appreciate you listening to the show. I really thank you and your wife for talking to me earlier. And it's an experience that I know it's hard to share. It's hard to go through, but I appreciate it. I know everybody listening who's out there who's had an experience and maybe not shared it yet. This sort of thing helps. It really does help. I don't know that we're ever going to get any answers on this, but it does.
I don't know.
It does. It does, I think, help.
Yeah, just be careful when you're out in the woods. There are things out there. So always keep your head on a swivel. Yeah. That's all I can say. Just be careful.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Adam. Thanks again.
Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you for the opportunity.
It was my pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the From the Shadows podcast. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.
God only knows what's hiding